Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today is date June the 18th, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the weekend, try to make sense out of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means we only cite sources from reputable areas with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, The Daily Beast. Wherever extreme left or extreme right you get your views from, we simply don't do that. At the same time, guys, we do try to be professional and watch our language, but let's be honest, words do fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Well, how do we explain Taco's big, beautiful, disastrous-ass weekend? Well, let's start with the good news. That the resistance is really alive and freaking well. And what I mean by that, folks, is this.
To Atlanta. Donald Trump has got to go. To Chicago. And in the nation's capital, organizers say more than 5 million Americans poured into the streets under the banner of No Kings, with the goal of sending President Donald Trump a message about the direction of his administration.
I didn't expect to be fighting fascism in my 50s.
The protests were in part a response to the administration's decision to host a grand military parade in Washington in honor of the Army's 250th birthday, which just happened to coincide with President Trump's birthday. Trump telling the crowd the day was about America's fighting force.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
The parade crowds were moderate amid intermittent rain and intense security all around the route, with those there calling the event a success.
It's patriotic. It's amazing.
But that celebration was juxtaposed by a mass mobilization in other parts of the country.
We just feel like that our democracy is in danger.
Protesters in thousands of demonstrations nationwide accusing President Trump of attempting to amass too much power and targeting innocent people in the administration's sweeping mass deportation program.
Well, we haven't had a king since 1776. We want to keep it that way.
Though largely peaceful, police say one person died when gunfire erupted at a protest in Salt Lake City, while in some others, demonstrators clashed with law enforcement. More than 30 were arrested in Denver. And in Los Angeles, after days of tension and conflict, police accusing protesters of throwing rocks, bottles, and fireworks at officers. The city's downtown area remains under an 8 p.m. curfew as police attempt to keep the peace.
And the Trump administration has not backed down from using the military to try and contain the violence in Los Angeles. This despite pleas from state and local leaders that it is unnecessary. In a preliminary ruling, a federal judge held that the president illegally deployed troops to the city without local input. An appeals court stayed that ruling until Tuesday, giving them a chance to weigh in. Craig?
Ryan Nobles Force there in Washington. Ryan, thank you. Hey, thanks for watching.
So again, America, or I should say, Viva la Resistance, y'all have showed out in 5 million plus in various areas of the state, various areas of the U.S. Even I usually call it my progressively backward state of Tennessee, home state of Tennessee. We're in Knoxville, where Trump had literally won double digits. You had folks pouring out on the street talking about we do want unelected to No King's Day. And yes, this is coincidentally on the same time that Taco had his birthday and his military celebration. But I love the fact of what Americans did. Americans did show you could protest. You did show that protests do work. You actually showed that enough of you in numbers mean something. Again, numbers is strength, ladies and gentlemen. And at the same time, if you're wondering, yeah, Taco didn't really have a good day. He was kind of ticked off that the military decided to show their displeasure. If you actually want to actually see clips of it, where military marching looks like they're having fun and looks like their stepping's out of sync and everything else. Yeah, it was on purpose. Why? Because the military does not like their commander-in-chief. And I don't blame them. At the same time, guys, it just goes to show you what we can do when we don't give Taco his attention. He'll man-child himself and then scream about other things, like still trying to invade California. But it seems he's got a bigger issue since our greatest welfare queen, Prime Minister Netanyahu, has decided to declare war on Iran and expects us to foot the bill.
Benjamin Netanyahu speaking right now. Let's listen in.
And let your voices be heard. Woman, life, freedom. Zan, Zandegi, Azadi. As I said yesterday and many times before, Israel's fight is not with you. It's not with you, the brave people of Iran, whom we respect and admire. Our fight is with our common enemy, a murderous regime that both oppresses you and impoverishes you. Brave people of Iran, your light will defeat the darkness. I'm with you. The people of Israel are with you.
All right, let's take it straight to our Matt Gutman, who has been there in country. Matter of fact, Matt, you and I were talking for hours on live television. The last time we saw missiles rain in on Israel, we just heard from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking directly to the Iranian people, encouraging them to rise up and rebel, saying the Islamic regime has oppressed you for almost 50 years. We are clearing the path for you to achieve your freedom. Your thoughts, Matt?
You know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, Kira, has been pretty consistent with this message. He's done it, I think, 3 or 4 times before over the past couple of years, or at least year, in which he has tried to appeal directly to the people of Iran. And what Israel is hoping might happen is that the dissidents and the opponents of the Iranian regime might have enough courage right now to come out of the woodwork and try some sort of civil uprising against the regime. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen because the regime has slammed the door shut on any sort of street protests in recent years. But I think that that's what they hope happens, that this not only breaks down the nuclear and missile arsenal of Iran, but also the political weaponry of the Iranian regime. And, you know, I think Steve Ganyard mentioned this earlier, as did Martha. Israel did not go after political leaders in Iran. This appears to be strictly aimed at Iran's military apparatuses, again, missiles, scientists, the leaders of its military and headquarters. And that appears, and obviously nuclear facilities. And they appear not to be going directly militarily after the political echelons, but it does appear that Netanyahu wants that to happen if it is possible. And again, he's been consistent with this kind of message.
So long story short, Netanyahu wants a war. And the reason why I keep calling Netanyahu the greatest welfare queen of the U.S. bankrolls Israel. That's why he can bark. That's why he can bark. That's why he can sit there and pick fights. That's why he can sit there and say half the stuff he says, because he has the backing of, you know, the U.S. government. Not because of the fact that strategic bases in the region, not because of the fact that Iran and the fear behind them having a nuclear weapons program will lead to actually nuclear weapons and bombs. It's the fact that Netanyahu wants a war. So, of course, everybody's looking at Taco and going, sure, Taco, surely you're not going to jump into something. You already don't want to deal with Ukraine. You rather feed Russia to them. At the same time, you're too busy trying to invade California, but every judge is telling you that you can't do that because, you know, the Constitution. Surely you're not going to sit there, listen to Netanyahu and say, we probably shouldn't get in this war. We forget it's Taco.
Let's talk to you, though, about President Trump, his decision to head home from the G7 earlier than expected. He's been very active today on socials. What's he been saying?
Yeah, with some really striking and significant words here about what the U.S. may or may not do next in this conflict. It's significant, this message that he posted follows up on some reporting we had over the weekend that the president rejected an Israeli plan to potentially assassinate the supreme leader of Iran. And the president wrote on Truth Social, his social media platform, earlier today that he knows exactly where he's hiding and that he's an easy target, but safe there for now, essentially saying we're not going to take him out, parentheses, kill at this point, but opening the door to that happening later, perhaps, and quite a significant threat, and saying, quote, our patience is wearing thin, and following up in another post to say unconditional surrender. So that's pretty significant with some of the other language you were just talking about there with Matt, in terms of the president putting this in the terms of the U.S. role and saying, we have secured the skies over Iran, raising the question of whether the U.S. is going to be plunged further into this conflict beyond just the air defense and support they're providing to Israel. So that is a major question right now. We know the president is going to be huddling with his national security advisors this afternoon to discuss all of that. But it's a really precarious moment where the president has been trying to pursue diplomacy, but now raising the idea there could be other action as well.
Yeah, and let me go back to Matt, because it does seem like the president is sort of sending messages to Iran using those social media posts. Do we have a sense of how Israel and Iran are reacting to these posts from President Trump?
No, I mean, what we're hearing from the Iranians isn't many references to Donald Trump, though. They almost certainly believe that anything that Israel does is little more than an extension of an order, or at least a green light from the White House. And, you know, this is something that they've been including in all of their rhetoric, and all of their proxy groups like Hezbollah and Hamas have the same worldview when it comes to Israel's posture. But the fact is that Israel has been more or less alone ever since this started. So despite the fact that Donald Trump keeps mouthing off on his social media and on other social media platforms, it's pretty clear that this is Israel's show, that it is the one doing most of the attacks. And America is only stepping in part to defend against Iranian projectiles that have been fired at Israel. So for the most part, we're still waiting to see how President Trump reacts, even though he's been shooting from the hip on social media as he's.
Yeah, he's shooting from the hip because we are going to unfortunately join them. See, again, I don't know what is this hole that Israel has in the U.S. Do they have dirt on us? Do they know where the bodies are buried? I don't know, because whenever it does, and I'm just saying this, whenever it comes to Israel, it's like, oh, they want foreign aid, give it to them. They want military aid, give it to them. Even now, where it should be an easy ass slam dunk for Taco, this is a you couldn't fail this open book test if we spoon fed it to you. Netanyahu is picking a fight with Iran. Netanyahu wants to pick a fight with Iran. All you do, Taco, the U.S. is not involved. We are not going to help in this war. We are not going to fund you. We are not going to support you. But what does he say? Oh, we know exactly where the main guy is, and we can take you out whenever we please. We rule the skies in that area, and we can take the ground. And our patience is wearing thin. You know, Taco trying to sound tough is like a chihuahua barking at a Belgian Malinois. Sure, it's fun to watch, but if the bigger dog decides that the tiny dog is a snack, that chihuahua is going to be a snack. At the same time, it's Taco. There's nothing threatening about what he's saying. He tried to threaten Ukraine. You saw what happened there. He tried to threaten Governor Gavin Newsom out of California, saying, I'm going to invade with the military. And Governor Gavin Newsom and everybody else that's actually read the Constitution has told Taco, you couldn't do that due to a certain act. At the same time, now you want to threaten from the backfield? You want to threaten from the back from the rear guard? Oh, we could take you out anytime we wanted. This is why the military acted that way during their celebration toward Taco, because Taco could have sat there and said, this has nothing to do with us. If you want to attack Iran, you are on your own. But he won't. And Netanyahu knows that. That's why Netanyahu can sit there and say, oh, Iran is secretly getting closer to building a nuclear bomb. Iran has always been a terrorist, always holding, they've been sheltering terrorists there. He will say anything to sit there and say, this is the reason why we're going after Iran. And at the same time, Taco and his cult will always sit there and say, we need to defend them for no other reason. Hence why I keep calling Netanyahu the biggest welfare queen on the U.S. dime since the red states. But if you want something humorous or just, probably figure it's a cold day in hell somewhere, Tucker Carlson interviewing Ted Cruz about certain things he should know as a senator when it comes to the possible war of U.S. entering the war with Israel over Iran. Either this is extremely funny, or this sums up everything that you knew about Ted Cruz and the fact that grifter Tucker Carlson might actually be asking the right questions.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population. At all? No, I don't know the population. I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know
claims
anything about the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, it just goes to show you that if you ever realize that Ted Cruz is nothing more than an empty talking point on a conservative side, and it took grifting ass Tucker Carlson to sit there and poke holes. Now, don't be wrong. This is not this Tucker Carlson's like, oh, well, he's been different since he showed. No, Tucker Carlson is a grifter. Much like Lori Ingram, much like Sean Hannity. There's a reason why Fox News is an entertainment network and not a news network. They are all playing a role and getting paid handsomely for it. Megyn Kelly would still be there off the fact that she didn't want to basically do what every other Fox News correspondent does there, except get paid for it. You'll know what I'm talking about if you remember the court case against her, or it's the court case that she led against Fox News. The point I'm getting at here is it is amazing that you have a whole bunch of chicken hawks all backing up Taco, who wants to back up Netanyahu and Iran, and they don't know spit about it except what's being fed to them in news blurs. But I just wanted to point that out because either it's funny or it's a cold day in hell that Tucker Carlson actually shined a light on how bereft a lot of these politicians really are. But speaking of things that also happened during this weekend, we also did have political assassinations with a suspect in Minnesota that was eventually caught.
We have been listening to and watching federal authorities in Minneapolis, Minnesota, discussing charges against this man, Vance Belter. He is accused of killing Minnesota State Representative and former House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband over the weekend. Police also say that Belter shot and injured State Senator Mark Hoffman and his wife. We heard the acting U.S. attorney in Minnesota say this was a political assassination. We also heard just now, they repeated it, that this person, they say, went to the homes of at least 4 elected officials. Let me bring in NBC News correspondent Shaq Brewster, who's been watching all of this and covering it. Shaq, that headline that he went to not just 2 homes, but 4 homes is news.
Yeah, you heard federal authorities there explain that this is something that, in their words, nightmares are made out of, that these are chilling details that we're learning. And we learned a lot in that press conference as they detailed why they were charging him with these 6 federal charges that include stalking using interstate facilities, murder of the Hortmans, and shooting of the Hoffmans. Now, we learned there that he went to 4 different homes. The official there said he stalked his victims like prey. He stopped at those 4 houses with the intent to kill. He started at the home of the Hoffmans. The officials there say that it was their daughter that ultimately called and presumably saved their lives. And that's what started this chain of investigations, where we know that authorities say the suspect went to 2 other homes of lawmakers, at one point encountered a police officer who was responding, who tried tried to talk to the suspect, authorities say, and essentially didn't make contact, and then ultimately kept going. And that's when this all ended at the home of the Hortmans, who were killed after a shootout between the suspect and police that were arriving there on scene to essentially do a wellness check. So this was a really chilling details and a chilling account that we learned from authorities. They did say that the suspect is now in federal custody. We can expect to see him in court at 2:30 Eastern time. This is when we can presumably hear a little bit more, and also they will make the case to a judge to keep him detained as this investigation, really prosecution, goes forward. And I think another key thing that's important to really tie down, because this was the source of so much misinformation over the course of the weekend, but you heard officials really clarifying the notes, the idea that he had some manifesto. They said, no, the why of this, why he acted in this way is not clear at this point, but that through a search of his vehicle, a search of his home, they recovered extensive notes that they say were taken over the course of years, and that, or excuse me, months, and included numerous names of state elected officials, federal elected officials, and even some abortion rights activists. So they're saying that there's no real sense of why he did this, or why he took these steps, but that's definitely a focus of the investigation, and clearly the chilling details that they just explained to us in that account that they gave. It really sends shivers up your spine when you know how much planning went into this, according to those federal authorities. Gabe.
Yeah, that one disturbed individual who had access to firearms, who also pretended to be law enforcement, was able to get to 4 politicians. Unfortunately, 86, two of them are still alive, but now facing charges. First and foremost, let's call this man what he is. He's a terrorist. It never ceases to amaze me. It never does. That when it comes to individuals, disturbed individuals, and it comes to the fact of what they've done, Dylan Roof, prime example. When you've taken life and you've done so, whether it's political or not, you're a terrorist. This man is a terrorist because he did try to assassinate politicians. And I find it completely amazing that almost every news outlet out there, they never call white people terrorists. We've said it here on How to Frack all the time on How to Frack. January 6th, those guys, domestic terrorists. They tried to usurp an election. We call them domestic terrorists for that very same reason. This gentleman that tried to 86 politicians, he's a terrorist. It never ceases to amaze me when it's a non-person of color that the word terrorist is never associated with them, unless someone says it first. And then it's like a merry-go-round. Everybody jumps on it. The man is a terrorist, simple and plain. Of course, Democrats and others have went to the Senate floor and asked for more protection and more money for protection, which again, it's not the first time. Nancy Pelosi's husband was attacked, and they also asked for more protection and more law enforcement to protect them. And I've always said it best on this. There are some jobs that does require a degree of protection. In this case, we should be asking how this man was able to, number one, impersonate a law enforcement officer, number two, able to literally sneak past whatever security or lack thereof may have been to get these individuals into their front door. And at the same time, how was current law enforcement that actually saw this man so very comfortable that nobody raised an eyebrow? I'm just saying, terrorists. But currently his case is underway. We'll see actually what will be his fate regarding that. But again, senior politicians were 86. You would think Taco would turn around and do what every other president does, calls the governor of the state and offers condolences and also asks if there's anything that they can do on their part. Well, Taco gonna be Taco.
On Minnesota, there were a lot of horrific details that came out today about the suspect who's been charged there. Have you called the governor yet or been able to speak to any of them?
I don't really call him. He appointed this guy to a position. I think the governor of Minnesota is so whacked out. I'm not calling him. Why would I call him? I could call him and say, hi, how you doing? The guy doesn't have a clue. He's a mess. So, I could be nice and calm, but why waste time?
I could be a mess and call, but why waste time? Because you're the president, dumbass. It doesn't matter if the person you liked. I mean, even Bush called governors that he didn't like. President Obama called Republicans during disaster, Hurricane Sandy. He called Governor Christie. We don't know if he did like Governor Christie or not. But because of Hurricane Sandy and the disaster that happened with that, President Obama had to call Governor Christie, offer his condolences, ask if there's anything we can do. Where Governor Christie, who, by the way, a few months beforehand was very critical of President Obama, but was kissing his ass when FEMA showed up to help. But all Taco had to do, simple and plain, ladies and gentlemen, was do what normal presidents would have done. Call the governor, ask him if there's anything that needs to be done, and simply go from there. The fact that he goes into, well, he was appointed by Walz, and this person did this. Do you really want to compare bedpans and administrations on who picked who? You picked a felon, a grifter, a guy that knew nothing about the position that he was in. And on top of that, you picked an AG that was barely unqualified, 3 times, mind you. And at the same time, you are saying more grifting. You are saying more grifting and fleecing the flock as your family continues to hawk things. One of those things we'll talk about very soon. But have the nerve, because Tim Walz may have appointed this guy to his cabinet. And that's the reason why he's saying that he won't call him, because he picks losers. Teapot, have you met Kettle? Kettle that's in a burning glaze of fire right now. But speaking of things that are on fire, Taco's big beautiful bill. We talked about this, guys. We've said how dangerous this is, that this will set us up for the second Great Depression. How Medicare, if cut and gutted, also one of the things will force citizens in their 60s that want Medicare Medicaid benefits will have to actually continue to work. We have said all these things, and I keep telling you guys what would happen as his biggest cheerleader, Speaker Mike Johnson, did get it pushed through the House. It is currently through the Senate, and we should all be a little concerned.
The Senate Finance Committee are unveiling proposed changes to President Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill. Those changes to Medicaid, tax cuts, and the debt limit could set up a potential clash with House Republicans. ABC News Washington managing editor Catherine Falders has the details for us. Hi, Catherine. So what are some of the biggest changes they're making here to this mega bill, and how do you think this is going to go over in the House?
Yeah, it's a good question. And as you note, it does set up a potential clash with the House and also with the White House. There are a bunch of changes here. For example, the Senate version makes tax cuts permanent, whereas if you look at the House version, that sunsets them. You're also dealing with differences in the Senate as it relates to changes to the provider tax Medicaid provisions. That drops that percentage from 6 to 3.5%. SALT, we've talked a lot about those. For example, the debt hike the debt limit hike in the Senate bill is $5 trillion as opposed to $6 trillion. And the reality here is that they are making a lot of changes in the Senate side, and it will set up a clash with the House, for example, and even with the White House, as Trump obviously has endorsed that House-backed plan that's gone over to the Senate. We expected this. It could potentially ping pong back and forth. But the reality is John Thune and the Senate side is dealing with a very slim majority. So it is going to be a pretty tough and tricky path ahead for him to get this passed through the Senate.
And Majority Leader John Thune could only afford to lose 3 Republican senators to get this bill passed. How much support does this version have?
Well, it's a good question, because after this version from the Senate Finance Committee was released, you did see some senators come out against this, for example. Obviously, Thune is confident they can get this thing over the line, but as usual, it'll be tricky for him with this margin. For example, Senator Ron Johnson said he's a no right now because the cuts aren't steep enough. We've talked a lot about Rand Paul. Rand Paul likely won't support this bill because it includes a debt limit hike. Rick Scott, he's another one. So again, the margin is very, very small here. So John Thune does have a lot of work to do behind the scenes to see if he can get his members on board.
And Kath.
And that's what it comes down to. Reconciliation, which for a lot of people that don't know, reconciliation is basically an act to which one party in the Senate can push through without the other party to vote on it. The thing is, you would need your entire party to vote on it, which means that Republicans, all the Republicans in the Senate, would need to vote on this bill to get it passed and pushed to Taco's desk without Democrats voting on it. Now, what does that basically mean? That basically means that all Republicans have to get on board, which right now is not looking very well, because Rand Paul has been very vocal about this bill along with others, because again, as we've said here on this podcast, they're wanting to gut Medicare and Medicaid off this bill, while extending Taco's tax cuts, while giving more to the rich and the upper 1%, taking away from the middle and lower classes. Here's what all Republican senators and representatives are concerned about. Not about the bill. They are concerned about midterms, because again, a lot of voters use Medicare and Medicaid. A lot of people who voted for Taco are starting to get their wake-up hangover, saying that, I didn't think this would happen to me. And we all sat there and said, and you believed him. And so now those very same politicians are worried that they may not have a job come next year. Why? Because if you take a lot of people and take away Medicare, Medicaid, their aids, and things of that nature from them, guess what happens? That you give Democrats all the ammo in the world to sit there and say, you voted for them and this is what happened. Now will you finally listen to us? Hence why they're, weighing out the pros and the cons. Do we push this bill forward and give Taco what he wants? And the cost of doing business is our jobs and possibly a democratically controlled Congress of Senate and House Representatives next year? Or do we say no? And then Taco and his cult systematically removes the non-loyalists from their positions and installs people who are just yes people. Decisions for those Senate Republicans. However, either way, somebody's going to lose. It just depends on who they want to lose with. At the same time, guys, I do want to bring this up because Taco being Taco, because he turned around and said, I want to invade California and sent the National Guard. He also empowered ICE. I'm sorry. Dang near Nazi Stephen Miller decided to yell at ICE in DHS and saying, you're not arresting enough immigrants, go everywhere. Hence why you see ICE as the new Gestapo, masked up, no badges, showing up at Home Depots, showing up at kids' schools, showing up in colleges, showing up at immigration court of all places, showing up at work sites, rounding up people without due process, and literally trying to deport them all in the same time. It's like it's fast food. However, Taco realized in doing so, you may have hurt your own workforce, meaning that, Mar-a-Lago may have less staff there. That being said, Trump and his mind decided to do a stay on, well, let's leave businesses, farms, and things of that nature alone because they must be good people. Well, you thought that was the end. Nope. Taco decided to turn around and pivot again.
Senior Homeland Security correspondent Julia Ainsley, whose neck is no doubt sore from the whiplash over the last couple of days. So, Julia, what can you tell us about how we got from reversal to reversal of the reversal and back to where we are now?
Yeah, Garrett, it really speaks to the ongoing debate within the Republican Party over how far you can take immigration enforcement without stepping on the interest of businesses. And we know that they've been doing workplace enforcements. They did a big one in Omaha right around the same time as the LA raids that sparked the protest. And in this case, we understood, at least through Trump on Truth Social, that he was hearing from business owners and the agriculture and hospitality sectors that the worksite enforcement was going too far, scaring away potential employees who could come. And so he said, we're going to change course. That's a pretty big admonition from this president, as you know well. But then we saw a memo that followed that telling people not to do worksite enforcement. That didn't leave out the employees. They could still be arrested in their homes, but at least the where that was prohibited, not to do it at those places. Then it may have been the media coverage, people talking about how there was a shift or perhaps Trump was weakening his resolve when it came to immigration enforcement. And we saw them course correct now, not through a memo, but through communication, probably through a phone call where they've now said, you know what, forget what that memo said. You can now go forward, make arrest. in work sites.
Our viewers know this because they see it on local television. I mean, these enforcement actions become the top story in every community when they happen. Is the president now essentially a prisoner of a policy that he campaigned on for the last 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, the tough thing, what he campaigned on was deportation.
Mass
You remember that
deportations. They
on
were
the
waving the
campaign
signs
trail.
at the convention.
And now all we talk about is arrests. And arrests don't necessarily equal deportations. In fact, a lot of the people that they're arresting aren't deportable. They
Much to the
have
administration's disappointment.
Yes, and they have orders from judges saying that they have pending asylum cases or they cannot be removed to certain countries. And so you're seeing these mass sweeps that, again, capture the attention when they happen because it's so visible. Whereas a deportation, that can happen from a small airport no one sees. And so it seems that the optics are still the prime focus here. And for now, he's going to continue these arrests because his calculation, or at least calculations from people like Stephen Miller, are to continue to do these arrests. And of course, when asked about this, he's pivoting to this new focus on blue cities. And that's what he wants to see next. That's where he wants to see the clash, more so than at the work site. But if they're going to get those arrest numbers up, work sites are where you get the numbers.
So what's crazy about this is that Taco, again, wants, I should say in this case, Stephen Miller, the neo-Nazi himself, they're all wanting the numbers to be up because, yes, Taco is a victim of his own policy. He wanted individuals. He wanted to sit there and say, we're going to round up all the criminals, all the worst of the worst, and we're going to deport them. But if you really think about it, how many criminals has he actually caught? How many killers, rapists, things of that nature were actually caught? Because last time we checked, you went to work sites and picked up individuals who were just simply wanting to work. You went to schools and picked up kids and frightened the crap out of them. You had waited at graduations. You waited at supermarkets, grocery stores. You waited at various other locations, which I never thought that, you would find a serial killer or a rapist at a Walmart or Kroger simply trying to get food. I don't think it's possible that, you can just stop and you can stop people and arrest with due process and leave their kids to fend for themselves. It is amazing to me that Taco and Iced Out Barbie and Stephen Miller and ICE and Homeland Security are able to operate in such a fashion that it's downright criminal. But I cannot expect Pam Bondi of the AG to do anything. She's too busy being the lapdog for the president's feet. Every time, that's the reason why the Department of Justice, which usually would step in right now and basically check them, is not doing it. So of course he'll want to get things done. Of course Taco wants to go after sanctuary cities because, again, he was told by that Nazi Stephen Miller that, hey, that's where most of the illegal immigrants are, in these sanctuary cities where cities have welcomed these immigrants, considering the fact that the non-sanctuary cities actually did a job of sending their immigrants to these sanctuary cities by bus or by plane. But now Taco and them see them as hunting fish in a barrel. And it never ceased to amaze me that, yes, he's not a victim of his policy. He's not. He's one of those, what happened was your butterfly mouth ran a check that your ass can't cash. And speaking of things that can't cash, this is why I sit there and say that the Trump family will always be grifters, considering the fact that just last year, that Taco reported $57 million in income from fleecing his flock. And now he's trying to do the next thing with a smartphone. Yes, a Trump smartphone. I cannot make this up.
Trump Mobile. We've partnered with some of the greatest people in the industry to make sure that real Americans can get true value from their mobile carriers. A big part of what we've done right now in the world has been focused on technology for people who have been underserved, whether that's been in crypto or anything else. But one of the places where we felt there was lackluster performance was in the mobile industry. And with Trump Mobile, we're going to be introducing an entire package of products that people can come. They can get telemedicine on their phone for one flat monthly fee, roadside assistance in their cars, unlimited texting to 100 countries around the world. And we've partnered with some of the best to really bring something unique to the American people.
But we're also spending a lot of time in the technology field. Everybody knows what we've done in crypto. I think we've got the greatest projects in crypto, and more our company is evolving into various sectors. And but there is kind of a key to that, and that is America, right? I mean, the fact that all your customer service will be done in America. It's going to be done in St. Louis, Missouri. I hope I was allowed to give that out. And making phones in America. It's about time we bring products back to our great country, and it's about time we disrupt this space. And
okay. Does anybody want to tell him? Does anybody want to tell him? I love the fact they try to say, well, your customer service, it's going to be an American. Your phones are going to be American made. Every phone manufacturer is probably looking at this video and goes, so who's going to tell them? And the reason why I'm saying that, guys, is there's not a smartphone that is created, built, and assembled in the US. Not one. Samsung's not it. And Samsung's not it. Apple's not it. Huawei, Nokia. I can keep going down the list. LG, when they did make phones. Research in Motion, when they did make phones. I keep going down the list. There, and I will bet money, dollars to donuts, I'll bet on this. There is not a smartphone that is built, created, assembled, or manufactured in the United States. You know where they're mostly manufactured at? China, Indonesia, India, those areas. Because materials are easy to get. The cost of labor is way down considering of where you can go to actually get folks to work on these phones. At the same time, these companies have zero liability to the factories and to the workers there. So to a company that actually assembles phones overseas, this seems like a great deal. However, the reason why I bring this up is because let's not forget, Taco pushed tariffs about things being assembled outside the United States that will be addressed to a tariff. At the same time, it never ceased to amaze me that his family will forever find ways to grift. And trust me, if you thought those Trump shoes, that some people actually bought those, mark my words, there'll be people out there trying to buy Trump mobile phones too. It's only a matter of time, but grifters are going to grift. But another thing I did want to bring up, guys, as we get closer to our feel good segment, there was a thing that came out, and again, this is with the VA. And we always love the troops and thank them for their service wherever we can on this podcast. But it seems Taco has decided to allow a rule to the VA where doctors, in theory, only because in theory, it hasn't happened yet, could refuse treatment to former or current armed service members based on their politics and their marital status. They can refuse to give care.
Doctors and other medical professionals working for the Veterans Affairs Administration to refuse to treat patients based on political or marital status. The rules were issued to comply with President Donald Trump's executive order designed to strip government protections from transgender individuals. Now, the rules also no longer prohibit the VA from discriminating against new potential employees.
Joining us this morning, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes. Khalif, good morning. Nice to have you. We know thousands, hundreds of thousands of veterans, especially in both North and South Carolina, rely on the VA for the certain amount for the care. All right, so let's talk about anti-discrimination protections and what we're looking at here with some of these changes here. How is this going to affect our veterans for the care that they need?
Well, the Trump administration is keeping me on my toes. I can tell you that much. Having me make sure that I'm not missing something and wanting to ensure that I'm just staying consistent with what changes are in the law. As attorneys, we have to do that. We have continuing education, yearly required to go update. But there's some things that haven't changed. First of all, states' rights don't trump federal rights. executive orders don't trump law. So that's what I'd first start with. And so when you have these guidelines, all of this is guidelines, they're recommendations, but they are blurring the lines in terms of how and when folks in the hospitals, specifically doctors, should act. In situations like this, I just go to what the law says. And we have established law that we have protected classes. And for years, I mean, that's under Title VII. We have race, gender, race, sex, age, national origin. Those are those protected classes. And when you have a protected class, you can't discriminate against a person like that because they're constitutionally protected, right? So then sex. For years, for a number of years, sex was only specifically male and female. That's what we were talking about. I mean, on the basis of sex, huge Supreme Court case, and that's how we got there. But if you can point to the Bostock versus Clayton County, Georgia, I've been there a number of times, that changed the whole definition of what sex was. The court talked about, went through a lengthy analysis about sex. Isn't just sex for male and female, but it also is sexual orientation. So if you were discriminated based on your sexual orientation, then now that is a protected class. Back to my original statement. If you're attempting to give guidance that contradicts what the courts have now deemed as accurate reflection of how the law should be read, this would seem to be at conflict. And if we have a conflict, I would just go to what my constitutional law professors told me. The Constitution, statute, or court interpretation of those things would trump any local, state, or executive order. So this, I would say, is a issue and a non-issue all at one time, because it's non-issue, because if they start to discriminate on folks, now you've subjected the federal government to lawsuits that's clearly written that you can't do.
And he's right. He's 100% right. That, and also, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't this kind of violate the Hippocratic Oath as far as do no harm? Do no harm. As physicians always believe in giving care, no matter who you are. They believe in giving care. So regardless of your political assignment, regardless of your status and things of that nature, it shouldn't matter whether or not you get care. And like the man said, like Legal Analyst said, this does open up a lot of lawsuits. Now, this hasn't happened yet. We haven't had a story where a current or former service member was denied care due to their political or marital status, things of that nature. It hasn't happened yet. The fact that there's a potentiality of it happening there and being in that for it can be considered legal should scream volumes. But like I said, nothing has happened yet. But again, it's like I said, we have yet to run to a situation to where we would have a case about this, but the fact that it's there screams volumes. Another case that we did want to cover as well, were a woman who was considered brain dead but was pregnant. The family at the time decided that they wanted to terminate, allow their loved one to cease, but the doctors had actually filed to actually keep her on life support until she was due to term. And as of this reporting, the woman who was considered brain dead did give birth.
A pregnant woman kept alive after being declared brain dead in Atlanta delivered a baby boy through C-section. Adriana Smith was put on life support in February while she was 8 weeks pregnant and kept alive by doctors of Georgia's heartbeat abortion law. And now the family says they're preparing to say goodbye and take Adriana off life support. The baby expected to be okay.
He's fighting. He's in the NIC unit. He's about 1 pound, 13 ounces. And he's expected to be okay. He's just fighting. We just want prayers for him. Just keep praying for him. He's here now. She had a lot to give. So I'm just trying to hold it together right now.
And that's heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. Because number one, the family for Miss Adriana Smith wanted to go on another pass, but it was the doctors, because they're forced, because again, let me say this first, it's not just the doctors, but it's Georgia's abortion law, which means if they can't detect a heartbeat, then of course they would force the woman to carry to term. Now in this case, the woman was considered brain dead. She was put on life support until that actually happened, and of course was able to deliver her baby. The point I'm getting at is, guys, is that's how dangerous Now, take from that how you will. You know, where was the hospital forced to do something that the state actually occurred to? The fact that women, when it comes to their bodies, should have their rights to their own bodies to where no one has a say in it. That's how it should be, because it's the same way for guys. And I say this all the time, that in 2025, we are just reliving the Handmaid's Tale all over again, where women are seen as nothing more than just baby factories. And if you choose not to have a baby, or if you're pregnant, the hoops you have to jump through if you do not want to be a mother. Now, with that being said, it amazes me that so many people out there only see women as just that. And yet, I keep saying this every election year, that if women, you guys should be the most pissed off group of people, because the fact that so many states have abortion laws in place, some states even outright ban abortions. At the same time, you really do not have autonomy over your own bodies, where you have idiots out there screaming, "Your body, my choice." And that alone just infuriates me. All the more reason why I keep saying, guys, this is the reason now with that kind of story that women need to have those protections in place. The reason why we had Roe versus Wade for a very long ass time. The reason why women had so many contraceptions and service things of that nature. Why? Look what happens when you remove just a few things. So I don't blame women for, dating less or not wanting to have kids or not wanting to do any of the normal stuff. You know why? Because they're not seen the same way men are when it comes to their bodies. And honestly, it's beyond time it should be recognized and something should be done about it. So again, it's just messed up. What is also messed up is that Elon Musk has decided that, you know what, we are going to build the largest supercomputer in the world in Memphis, Tennessee. The problem is with most supercomputers, there's a little bit of toxicity that comes with that. And this toxicity is next to a town that simply cannot stomach the cost.
In Memphis, Elon Musk is making a play to control the future of artificial intelligence. His company xAI says it has built the biggest supercomputer in the world with lightning speed. Paul Young is the city's mayor.
It represents a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity for us to take our economy to the next level.
xAI says it will create $100 million in revenue and hundreds of jobs. But the digital future needs power, lots of it. These are the gas turbines fueling the supercomputer they call Colossus. They emit hazardous pollutants like formaldehyde and nitrogen oxides, according to the manufacturer.
Just over this fence, you can see and hear the turbines churning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Without them, the data center does not function. What's not in dispute is the fact that they are polluting the air. What people don't know is how much of that pollution is reaching nearby communities.
Easter Knox lives 2 miles away.
You smelled it?
Yes, Lord.
Right away?
I sure did. Well, after they got situated, I started smelling it.
Knox lives in Boxtown, a mostly black, low-income neighborhood in South Memphis.
The health department, they need to be ashamed.
Where industry has taken a toll for generations.
There's a lot of people out here who got medical problems like breathing issues.
Cancer risks here are 4 times higher than the national average. Cancer killed her father and other relatives, Knox tells us. Life expectancy here is 9 years less than the national average. Elon Musk's company is not to blame for those numbers, but that legacy and those turbines have triggered a backlash against xAI.
Hello, everyone.
A recent health department hearing turned into a shouting match. An executive from xAI ducking out a side door. The mayor says the city is hoping to start testing the air in the next 2 months.
Right now, there are people in that community that feel like they have been railroaded by xAI, that they weren't a part of the conversation when it was approved, and now they're bearing the brunt of its existence.
Well, I think it's important for us to have direct dialogue. I take their concerns deeply serious.
Among their concerns, the company is running the turbines without a permit. But the health department says that's okay for the first year. And after city officials said there were 15 turbines, environmental advocates released this thermal image. They say it shows twice that many active.
As soon as we saw the image, we called like, hey, we had a conversation. What's happening with these additional ones?
So they're not using those?
No, they're in idle mode in case they are needed.
XAI declined to be interviewed, but tells NBC News it is using pollution minimizing technology and working with public officials to stop relying on the turbines by the end of this year. XAI has also pledged to build a water treatment facility for the city.
Elected officials are working for and conspiring with industry in order to draw profits.
Community organizer Keyshawn Pearson has lived in South Memphis most of his life. He says he is skeptical XAI will create hundreds of jobs and doubts the mayor's promise that its tax dollars will be directed to improve these neighborhoods.
We don't want money in exchange for our lungs or in exchange for our lives. We want clean air. We want clean water, clean soil, just like everybody else.
XAI is already building a second supercomputer nearby, even bigger, that will need even more power, raising new questions and more anger among some residents, Lester.
Okay, Stephanie.
So you're probably wondering how they got away with this. Well, number one, it's Tennessee. Number two, it amazes me how the mayor is so nonchalant about that. It's like, well, it's the cost of doing business. We should be ever so lucky. This is going to bring a lot of growth and things of that nature. It's amazing how they said that about Amazon. Amazon's supposed to do the same thing. Oracle is supposed to do the same thing. I can keep going down the list. So many, whether they're automakers, dealers, things of that nature, brand names like IKEA, we're supposed to all bring this new growth. Not to forget the fact that when it comes to supercomputers, yes, they do take a lot of energy. Yes, they do, depending on the type of the energy source that's used, there has to be a waste fallout. And the fact that a nearby town is feeling the effects of said waste lets me know that the health department and the EPA need to be more involved. But then again, we're at Taco's administration. The EPA of Biden or the EPA of Obama, I'll even go farther and say the EPA under Bush 2.0 would have probably never let this happen. Because how are they able to operate without a health permit, without a permit, because the health department says it's okay? How is it that they're able to operate with turbines where 15 of them are supposedly in idle mode, which means you're still generating energy, but yet still harming the nearby towns? And again, whenever it comes to, oh, will they pledge to build a water treatment plant? Pledge or get it in writing? Because I hate when these mayors, especially with that mayor that was just on here, try to sit there and say, well, folks, folks are just going to be discontinued when it comes to change. Sir, how deep are you in their pockets? Even the XI spokesperson couldn't even handle his own during a town hall, because again, he knew he had answers that these people weren't going to want to hear. So what does he do? It amazed me so that when you take away the regulations and departments that protect us in the environment, how stories like that are so crazy that they don't get swept under the rug. They get put in front of your face and say, while you have people who are supposedly supposed to be your voices there saying, oh, well, it's cost doing business. So yes, if I was in South Memphis, I would be making it loud and proud and make it national, because the only way you're going to get this to happen again, guys, is to basically have a no kings protest of your own, and the fact that we do need to protect the environment and our clean drinking sources of water, because eventually, if they have it their way, we're not going to have nothing but money, and you can't eat money. The last one I got, guys, again, shouldn't be any surprise. Taco extended TikTok again.
President Trump will extend that deadline for TikTok's Chinese owner to divest the popular video sharing app. The president plans to sign an executive order this week that would keep the platform running despite a bipartisan law banning it over national security concerns. The order will give ByteDance 3 more months to comply with the law.
So again, guys, it amazed me so that when it comes to Taco and TikTok, he tried to give TikTok a bait. Taco gonna be Taco. Walks back his walks back his warning and says, well, I'm going to give you guys more time. TikTok is still Chinese owned. TikTok is still popular. TikTok, for the longest time, was off the shelf for a while, but now was brought back because, again, its data is valuable. And because Meta sold out, Meta bought Instagram, Meta bought Snapchat, and Meta sells its information to the U.S. government. And again, what the U.S. government hates is competition. So, again, we'll see whether or not TikTok survives this ban, or we'll simply give it another extension, depending on what Taco decides to do. But that being said, guys, we are going to go ahead and move forward to our feel good segment, because usually how the Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes makes you faith humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, tomorrow's Thursday, and usually we have a clip or we have a video of some uplifting news or somebody getting rewarded or somebody getting their flowers. But this time, we want to give our flowers to the resistance. No Kings protest proved, guys, that your voice can be heard. So many of you, so many of you came out and protested in areas that where Taco had won in double-digit numbers. You said you had enough. You guys have overshadowed a military parade and Taco's birthday celebration. You guys have brought to the forefront that we're a nation that we will not have a king, that we will not do this. You had veterans, you had those, the LGBTQ plus community. You even had straw hats from One Piece, if you know what that is, saying that we will not. And it is amazing to me that when you have so many people that come to protest, holding signs during the No Kings protests, imagine what you can do with that very same energy come elections. Just saying. Wanted to give you guys your flowers on making Taco cry, because again, whenever Taco cries or loses, the world's a little bit better. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Thank you all for watching, liking, sharing, letting people know this is live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we get out of here. Shout out to Always Press Record TV. Why? Because How the Frack Got Here is on APR TV. You can check them out in the Roku channel store or the Amazon Fire TV app, and other shows that are on there as well. Definitely give it a like, a share, and a follow. And definitely check out APR TV. BlurStation.com. Again, guys, I keep telling you, the streaming service that we need to be behind for movies, television shows, animation, things of that nature. A table built by us, for everyone to enjoy. Simply click, hit the join now button, select the Bird's Eye View Affinity memberships, like Black Spartan there as the Affinity member. It is $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station, and Blur Station can be streamed on all smart devices. And finally, runforoffice.org. You want to know how the crazy people did it, how Moms for Liberty people did it? Well, they started here. Simply put your address here, guys, and from there you can see how you can run for office in your area, whether you want to serve locally or nationally, and then from there be able to run and hopefully be elected. Because again, guys, it's beyond high time that we cannot depend on others to do the job for us. We also must get involved through every level humanly possible. Also, check out How the Frack Got Here on YouTube. Check it out How the Frack Got Here on TikTok, on Instagram, things of that nature, guys, because much like NPR, we simply cannot do this without your support. So definitely like, share, and follow, and let us know what you think. Let us know stories that we missed or anything we can investigate, because we do want to bring those stories to light that the major news publications do miss, or as we talked about last week, that the owners of these news media networks simply need to grow a spine, because a lot of these journalists are going to YouTube, and I am all for it. That being said, also, guys, you can find me, Black_Spartan615 on the web as well. Like, share, and follow me there. Just don't make it weird. I don't have to start blocking people. And like I said, guys, if anything that No Kings protest has shown us is that we are all capable of doing great things if given the chance to. That being said, guys, How the Frack Got Here is not about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better as society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past and making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to Federal Board of Governors, maybe one day electing our first Black woman to finally be able to hear the words say, "Congratulations, Madam President." All great things. We don't learn from history, guys. We are doomed to repeat them. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians in Congress, but still getting the same old game there? And most importantly, how the Frack got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Don't doom scroll. Take some time out in peace for yourselves. Check on your strong ones. At the same time, enjoy life. It's not over yet. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I promise we will all get through this, guys. Peace.